I managed to get myself fired by prying into the CEO's email account. After graduating from college, I spent a few years working as an analyst for a little private equity company. One of the biggest dicks I've ever met was the CEO. He was a multimillionaire, quite young in his 40s, and the kind of guy who had no regard for business ethics and was motivated only by money. He would stop at nothing to gain the upper hand in a transaction, no matter who he screwed over, workers or contractors. I even witnessed him sexily and without regrets screw a longtime family friend. In any case, in addition to my analyst position, I also happened to be one of the few, somewhat tech-savvy employees of the company, because it was a very small enterprise with only around 20 employees in the office and many more working remotely. I thus turned into the de facto millennial office computer guy, much like a lot of people in my generation. In spite of my lack of experience, I was assigned to handle almost all minor tech-related tasks, configuring servers, troubleshooting laptops, responding to inquiries like how do I convert this to PDF, and even rudimentary network security. They mistakenly believed that I was a computer whiz, but in reality, I was essentially winging it and Googling everything. However, with time, I became genuinely proficient in all things technological. They assigned me more challenging assignments, such as overseeing installations and organizing all of the computer systems for their own companies. Please note that I was not compensated more for any of this. I was quite tired of working there for a number of years, since it was major garbage. I was not getting better. I detested working for Captain Douchebag because he was a jerk to everyone. I was working 12 14-hour days without receiving a performance bonus or overtime pay. Furthermore, they weren't paying me nearly enough. In addition, I detested being the tech guy and was miserable as hell from essentially working in a cubicle. I therefore made the decision to launch my own consulting business and work for myself because I had had enough of the 9-to-8 grind and working for jerks. But I reasoned that it would be wiser to first expand my clientele on the side while I was still receiving a reliable wage rather than resigning immediately. That's what I did then. I opened for business and attracted my first customers. I gradually began spending more and more time at my office job working on my side business as the workload grew. I was really quiet about it at first. Eventually, though, it was obvious. Since it was such a small business, I was the only one who was proficient in performing numerous critical jobs and running some crucial internal systems. Telling my supervisor that a project that was supposed to take a week to finish actually took me 10 minutes. Before long, I was utilizing 80% of my day to work on personal projects at work. At my desk, I would even answer calls for my clients in my side business. I usually idled away the remainder of the time on Reddit or something like. Naturally, we have mechanisms in place to keep an eye on network activity. However, I was the one in charge of keeping an eye on it. This went on for some time. I was becoming less and less concerned with the office job as my own business grew. I also started arriving late for work because I detested getting up early. It was only around 30 minutes at beginning. After that, it went on for an hour. My boss's lack of rebuke made it obvious how much they relied on me for their operations. I used this to my fullest advantage. Before long, I was getting there at noon, working for a few hours, and then leaving for my house. Although I helped them with all of their computer issues and they also detested the firm, my co-workers were unhappy but chose to remain silent about it. At some point, my employer finally spoke with me about it all, but for the next few days, I just showed up on time and resumed coming in whenever I pleased. I was shocked that I hadn't been fired yet after more than 2 months of showing up to work, 4 or 5 hours late, and working on my side project in front of my jerk of a boss. I thought it was inevitable and that I deserved it. I made the spontaneous decision to look into it a little further. My role as the tech guy gave me complete access to the company's email system. I proceeded to access the CEO's personal email account and looked for my name. And sure enough, there was a recent email exchange with my name in the subject line that included him, my immediate supervisor, and a few other team members. Of course, I open it. They are talking about my recent performance problems. The final email in the chain essentially stated, "I will be firing him at the end of the week if nobody objects." In 2 days. Although that didn't surprise me, I made the decision that I could not allow these assholes to terminate me. I didn't care about the job, but I also didn't want to have a termination on my record. And for a little while longer, I wanted to continue getting paid. Naturally, I had to keep my knowledge of my impending termination from him. I therefore devised a scheme to give the CEO a little initial reverse psychology mind screw. One day, before they were going to terminate me, the following day, I asked to meet with him to discuss my current performance. As soon as I sat down in that meeting, he asked what I wanted to talk about. "Look, I know I've been a shitty employee lately," I told him, paraphrasing. "You have undoubtedly noticed. I may be mistaken, but I've been feeling like you guys are going to let me go shortly." He must have thought I was clairvoyant to figure it out on my own the day before it was supposed to happen, because the look of amazement on his face when I said that was priceless. He only said something like, as I recall. I went on, and he sat looking shocked. To be honest with you, I no longer have the same passion for this work. I'm an entrepreneur at heart, as you are aware, and I'm sure you can understand. My goal is to launch my own business. But as you know, I'm responsible for a number of things here that no one else can. I continued by enumerating all I had done and was working on. When he saw how screwed he'd be if I left abruptly, I could see it on his face. So let me make this suggestion. I'm not fired by you. I don't give up. I continue working here for a month, completing the projects I'm working on now, and I can train anyone you want on everything I oversee. I'll be back once a week when the first month is over till it's finished. If you still need me after that, you can pay me on an hourly basis depending on the project. Even though I had him by the balls, I purposefully brought up the prospect of my leaving so he would feel like he won the bargain. After pausing momentarily to consider, he murmured something like, "All right, you've got an agreement. Not only did I manage to avoid being fired, but I also managed to convert the corporation into a paying customer. I trained my replacement as promised and did pretty much whatever I pleased during that month because I had an expiration date. They contacted me frequently for remote assignment work after the month was over. I scarcely had to deal with the CEO and charge them 3 times what I was getting paid there. Since I had a sizable clientele, I permanently parted ways. Nearly 3 years after all of that, the CEO still contacts me with questions and recommendations. I just brush him off nowadays with a "sorry, I'm too busy" response.